Okay, so I've officially, finally seen my first true January film of 2015. Because all these other January films that I've seen were technically 2014 and pushed back to January. So here is the true January film of 2015. Okay, I am really frustrated with The Woman in Black 2. And it's not because I think it's a bad film, it's because it could have been so much frickin' better. Okay, so let's talk about the good first, because honestly, there is plenty of good. It is not as bad of a film as people would lead you to believe. Now, I'm a little different. I like horror movies, and I'm a little bit more optimistic with horror movies, so my opinion probably doesn't even matter. Alright, first off, it is a sequel to a horror film that I really appreciated when it came out. In fact, it's right on my movie shelf here. You see? Woman in Black. And I really appreciate it because it went back to old school horror films. And now, Woman in Black 2 does try to do that from time to time. It tries to be a slow-paced horror film, and for the most part, it could have been done well. The story itself for Woman in Black 2 I enjoyed. The sequel is set in World War II, and this is during the time when England sent all its children to the countryside to be away from the attack on London. So now we have a group of children, which the Woman in Black loves to kill, in the Woman in Black house, with just two teachers to watch over them. So yeah, for the most part, I really enjoyed the story. Also, all the acting is good. One girl, the lead actress, is better than the rest, but all of them did a fine job, and there was no standout bad acting. I also like the backstory of three major characters, and all three of the backstories meld well with the main plot line. It's one of those things you see in really good horror movies where our main hero is dealing with an internal struggle or some sort of history that also coincides with the present danger that they're in. And it's good horror story 101, people. Ultimately, there is a lot of amazing things that were done in Woman in Black 2. Now, here's the problem. Here's why everyone hates it so much, and I completely understand, and I almost hate it because of this. Now, someone, I don't know who, whether it's the director or the scriptwriter or someone involved with making this movie, it felt like they were trying to sabotage it. Yeah, this is a movie that easily could have been a 4-star movie for me or higher if it weren't for someone completely sabotaging it with jump scares. I know. Jump scares are a completely legitimate tact for horror movies. However, here's the thing. Obviously, they can be done very cheaply, and it doesn't take a lot of effort to make a good jump scare, which is probably why they're so overused nowadays, because people are realizing, hey, if we can make a very low-budget horror movie, fill it with jump scares to keep everyone entertained and scared, then we don't even have to make a big box office in order to get our budget back, or even a profit. Just make it very cheap, and we'll get our profit within 2 weeks of its release. And that's what is happening, and that's what keeps happening nowadays. And also with jump scares is, if you rely on it throughout the whole movie, it's just simply not scary. Let's face it, just like I said, jump scares can be easily done. All you have to do is turn down the ambiance, turn down everything, freeze it for a little bit, and then suddenly have something jump in front of the screen and blare up the music. That's all you have to do. That's all it is. And the problem is, it's not scary. You may think you're scared. It tries to trick your body into thinking you're scared by having all the same reactions, like a flinch, a rapid heartbeat, sweating. It imitates fear without actually being scary and you being scared. Know what else it does? Well, it causes a lot of people to laugh. Have you ever been in a theater full of jump scares where everyone, instead of jumping or screaming after each jump scare, just decides to laugh? That's what happened with me in Woman in Black. Also, there are times with jump scares where the jump scare isn't what's scaring people. It's just the music. The music, and it's just your body's reaction to a sudden loud noise. For instance, there is one moment in Woman in Black 2 where our main hero sees a lump under the covers of this bed, and she reveals she takes off the covers, reveals that there's a dead body. And that's not the jump scare. Later on, in that same scene, she looks away, and then when she looks back, the body's gone. Unfortunately, and that's not really a jump scare, but as soon as she turns around, before it even shows the body's missing, there is a loud music. It's just a loud sound that isn't even in the film. It's just put in through editing, and it's just music. It's not like a noise in the film or a noise that happens while she's in the house. It's just music for us, the audience. And suddenly, a woman in our theater just screamed. And she wasn't screaming at anything on the screen or anything that was happening. She was screaming at the loud music. And the other big thing is the false scares that aren't really the monster or the ghost or the thing we're supposed to be scared of. It's usually just some friend jumping out and scaring the pants out of you, or just a bird hitting the window. Yeah, that happens in Woman in Black too. And then there's this other reason why I feel like these jump scares were completely sabotaging the film. Not only were they trying to rely on it, they were doing it at such a random interval through the movie. It's like, it doesn't even build up. I mean, you can legitimately have a good build up and build it up to a jump scare, and that's okay with me, as long as it's a jump scare of the monster, the ghost, or whatever. But this wasn't even happening. They were just throwing them in there. They weren't building it up to it. They were just throwing them in there, and so it's like, okay, we haven't had a jump scare yet. This is a long stretch of time without jump scare. Let's just throw one in there. And throw this one in here too. And throw this over here and there. It's just so freaking random. And the worst part is, there is some actual good build-up to something suspenseful, creepy, just like the first film. But what do? They completely sabotage it by throwing in a jump scare before you're supposed to be scared of something. Ugh. Let me give you this example. There's this point where one of our main heroes, the guy, because there's a guy and a girl, and this guy, he discovers something in the attic, and it's like a phonograph or some sort of like audio diary of the Woman in Black. and it's like on a phonograph, or I don't know what they're called. But he's listening to her and listening to her talk about what happened with her son and all these crazy things about. And it's very disturbing. It's like a really good build-up to something scary, where you're going to see the woman in black or something like that, right? It's building up, it's getting super creepy. And I'm like, okay. They know what they're doing. They're doing it, they're fine. This is what I've been waiting for. And then before the audio is even done and before it builds up to that climax, suddenly a bird hits the window. Just so randomly, because it keeps showing the guy and the girl, and it shows the girl looking out the window, and she's looking at the place where the cross is, basically where the husband died in the bog. And so she's looking out at that. The phonograph diary is still going on in the background, and suddenly a bird hits the window, and then like almost straight after that, it finally builds to that climax on the audio, and you see the woman in black hang herself. And it's like, that's what it was building up to. The problem is, all our tension was released when we jumped from the frickin' bird gliding into the window. They sabotaged their own climax. They sabotaged their own build-up by throwing in a jump scare so they can try to have 2 jump scares right off the bat. It sucks. And let me tell you, I know people are going to hate this movie. I can understand why they hate it, because it's like it's trying to sabotage its own film. Now, I've gone to the theaters a lot. I have seen so many movies. Starting 2009, I've been in the theaters at least twice every week. Maybe even more some weeks. And this is the first time ever that I've seen people actually leave before the movie even got done. Just got up and left and wanted a refund because they could not stand this movie. That's the first time that's ever happened to me in a theater where I've actually seen it. I've heard it done. I've heard of people that leave the movie, but I've never seen it until The Woman in Black 2. And not only did it happen once with a group of 5 people, it also happened with the group right behind us. So we had 2 groups of teenagers completely leave the film because they couldn't stand it anymore. In fact, 2 of them kept getting up every so often to take a smoke break because that was more interesting to them than the movie itself. So I can totally understand why they hate the film. It is boring as heck because they keep throwing in stupid jump scares, and it's not scary at all. But at the same time, I can't help but see the potential this movie had. It had good acting, good story, and it had a few moments where there was build-up that was amazing. Unfortunately, it kept sabotaging itself with jump scares. This movie could have easily been something good, and it should have been. All they have to do is eliminate all the false jump scares, eliminate a lot of the jump scares, add a little bit more moments of the woman in black in, like they did in the first one. In the first one, it didn't matter if the guy saw the woman in black or not. I mean, they showed her quite often enough to get the audience suspense and to question whether, okay, is he seeing it or is it just us that are seeing it? There was moments where he didn't have to see her. We were seeing it for him. And if there was more of that, it would have been awesome, because there really isn't much of Woman in Black, and it honestly makes the whole first half pretty boring. If there was more of that, no jump scares, more build up, it would have been great. There is one little consistency problem because, okay, the whole thing with Woman in Black is if you see the Woman in Black, then that means a child is going to die. Well, apparently the people making the Woman in Black 2 did not remember this because it takes the Woman in Black being seen three times before she finally kills one kid. Really? And at the same time, the deaths of the kids aren't as graphic or as great as the first one was. I mean, the first one, I think it was freaking PG-13, and they had this girl coughing up blood and another girl burn herself to death. But in Woman in Black 2, with the same rating, all they have is they find a kid dead after he's fallen into barbed wire, and you don't really see anything that looks bad at all. And one girl that chokes herself, and that's all you get. It's not as bold as the first Woman in Black. If you're the kind of person that hates a film because of wasted potential, I'm the opposite. When I see potential, I think, okay, if some things could have been changed, maybe I could have been a great film, and so I mark it up for seeing potential. Now, a lot of people would mark it down because it's more wasted potential, but I'm a little bit more optimistic when it comes to movies. So, for me, I'm going to have to give Woman in Black 2.5 stars. It is better than most January horror movies, but unfortunately, it keeps sabotaging itself into becoming one of those typical January horror movies. But there is good acting in it. The story is good and interesting. It's just boring and unscary because of the lack of actual scares and the lack of the Woman in Black. So if you've seen the Woman in Black 2, go ahead and comment. We'll discuss the movie. Otherwise, if you haven't seen it, what is your favorite horror movie? Or better yet, what is your favorite supernatural horror movie? So basically ghosts and stuff. So this is Bruce Gifford, and this was Just My Opinion.